Welcome to Your Two Cents, the podcast, made by Canadian Content Studios in partnership with credit unions. Hi, I'm Jonathan Torrens. On the last episode, you heard part one of our Debt Roundtable, in which Alicia, Sylvia, Kayla, Amanda, Ton, and Jasmine bravely shared some intensely personal and fascinating stories about their relationships with money growing up. Well, they've learned a lot since they were kids, and good news, they're ready to share again. This time you'll hear how each of them approaches money now that they're all grown up. Here's Debt Roundtable, Part 2.
Alicia, have you ever lied to someone about how much money you make?
Oh, all the time. I think I'm on two opposite ends of the spectrum now. I think I lied to people about how much money I was making when I wasn't making a lot of money. And now that I'm technically debt-free and I'm making such good money that I never even fathomed being able to make, now I'm not telling people how much I'm making there either because I'm too embarrassed to even have that conversation for both for judgment. Yeah. Same thing, both sides. Yeah. I was afraid to tell people about my salary because I didn't want people to judge me because I didn't have a university degree to back on my salary. I didn't have, and then now I still don't have a university degree and I'm making the money that I'm making and I'm afraid to tell people what I'm making or where I'm at because I'm afraid of the opposite side of the judgment. I'm also guilty of it. I was guilty of passing judgment on people who were making more money than I was when I wasn't making money, so I understand where that comes from. But at the same time, I think there's also power in sharing how much money that we're making so that people can start evening the playing field. Now on social media, listening to people have conversations around salary, a few really good accounts on there that talk about this is how much I'm making, and then realizing
I'm undervaluing myself.
Why am I not making that? Yeah. Or just easy conversations around how I should have negotiated my salary every time I went into a new contract, or how I should have been asking for better benefits when I went into my contract. And those are things that I was never taught how to do back then. So yes, I have lied on a regular basis, and it's for the same reason. It's just, I have always been and probably will always feel afraid of the judgment that comes along with being honest about my salary, or, what I'm saving, what I'm not saving, what I'm spending, what I'm not spending. So
do you all feel the same way? Have we all? Because I certainly feel that way too. In both both spectrums. 100%.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that's what it was. I'm glad you said it like that, right? Because like you said, both ends of the spectrum and both are true, right? But I'm glad you mentioned about, specifically with social media and content creation, because I have a friend who's a content creator and we're very good friends. So her and I can comfortably talk about that kind of stuff. And I go to her and say, they brought me this contract. Can you take a look? Do you think that's fair? And every time she's like, no, you need to be asking for this. You should have asked for this. I was like, well, I said this much. And she's like, what? Right? And so that's a point of reference for me as someone who that's not my kind of niche on social media. I don't often do contracts. So the rare ones that I do, I have no idea what to do and what to ask for. And I always undervalue myself. I feel I'm very confident in who I am and what I have to offer. But when it comes to money and providing services, I'm like, just give me some free stuff, right? And then you're like, wait a minute. Then you get into it and you're so stressed. And
it's so much work.
Right, it's so much work.
We make it look easy, but it's
so much work.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good conversation to have as well, because I think a lot of people on the outside looking in terms of social media and content creation, influencing, whatever it might be, it can look like it's just, fun and taking pictures and funny reels.
Yeah, they don't know about the 25-page contract.
It's high, and it can be very high stress.
And I think I've learned that can apply to literally every profession.
Right.
I have 100%. friends who are veterinarians, and I don't envy. I see the salary. I know how much they're making. I could never do that job.
Right.
It's one of the highest turnover jobs in the world, and the things that they have to deal with on a regular basis are like no other. So I think it's one of those things where it's the salary doesn't always necessarily represent the amount of work mentally, physically, that emotionally that you have to put into the job that you have to do. But everybody's just genuinely afraid of the judgment that comes along with it because there's no way to explain, why you're worth that. And I think we've been built to be like, am I worth that? Like you said, like
especially as women, I think we can definitely be more guilty of that. I feel like I have conversations with my partner,
Definitely.
and he's like, argue this or negotiate this. He's like, hell no, you're not doing that. And I was like, oh, but I was going to, And so sometimes I think having those conversations with him really give me a bit more gusto. And then I think you're right too. Having conversations, Ton and I are the same. We'll bounce things off of each other, and be like, oh, did this come up for you? Or with contracts with influencer marketing, there's all kinds of things that nobody talks about, and then you're like, oh wait, no, I'm providing so much more of a service. There's so many little things that they're sneaking in there after the fact. So yeah, I think open dialogues are good, but I think you should also feel comfortable too. Like if you feel like it's something that's private to you, I think there's still a way to have conversations
And
without
find
having
a person or a support.
safe person. Choose your person and choose what you feel comfortable talking about. I think you can share information without having to give away your whole farm, but I think at least I mean, I don't have a farm, but I'm lucky I have a condo, but
I think it's a really important thing because the dollar amount that you're making isn't necessarily the thing that you're flat out saying to someone. It's not like, I'm making X amount of dollars a year.
Or your vacation. There's so many things with your salary that maybe you get a bonus. Like, how much time do you have?
Exactly. Like, that's so much. But I think there's something about saying to someone, okay, I'm going to this new job. What is the range? Give numbers, and that way people can feel comfortable going, oh my gosh, no, it should be so much more. Or actually, that feels pretty on par. I found when I left the corporate world and moved into working for myself, I had the same conversation. I thought, I can't tell anybody what I was making in my old job. Also, sometimes you have to sign contracts that say you won't talk about how much money you make when you're working in the corporate world. And even when I was an employee of a business, I wasn't allowed sharing my salary. So I'm a rule follower. So I'm going, okay, well, I'm not telling you how much money I make because I signed something that I said I wouldn't do it. So then all of a sudden you're thinking, well, how do I build a business plan to try and make as much money as I was making before? And I had nobody to talk to about it. And so eventually one day I think we were having, this was part of our conversation, was I called one of my girlfriends, we spoke in the most vague terms, and then all of a sudden we were like, enough.
Yeah, it's silly.
What is this? Like, you're doing something similar to me. We're both trying to achieve similar things in our personal and professional lives. Like, let's cut through this and have a real conversation. And by the end of it, it was like a therapy session, which kind of feels like what we're doing right now too, which was, we never had to divulge exactly how much money we made, but we talked about it enough that we could get to helping each other and supporting each other. And there was never like, you can afford to do that with the amount of money you make. It was like, good for you. How do we navigate through this? Or it could be more, how can I give you advice to try and get you there? But that felt like that was a close person in my life, and that was a really scary conversation to have because I was so scared of what the judgment would feel like on the other side.
Budget is a really good thing to come back to. You don't necessarily have to say, I make this amount, this many zeros, whatever. I think you can still educate your friends, your family, whoever, without having to feel exposed. You should only share what you feel comfortable, right? And you're not going to keep sharing if you feel uncomfortable.
One of the things I think is so interesting about the conversation Alicia and I had previously was that you felt like you couldn't tell people that you didn't have enough money to go out. So you would go out or you would skip things and feel really guilty about it, not doing it, rather than just raising your hand and going, actually, it's out of my budget. I know I've been in those situations before, 100%, and you feel so embarrassed rather than going, no, that's not in my budget right now, or that's not within my means.
Or it's not something you're willing to spend money on in this moment. It's not a priority to you right now because you're living in a I'm thinking bachelorettes and, that sometimes travel that comes with that. For sure, been in similar situations at different points in my life and just feeling like, yes, I want to celebrate this really big moment with you, but I can't afford it. And then what do you do? How do you have that conversation? You kind of feel like it's a personal failure and you feel really icky about it, and then you don't want to hurt their feelings.
And then when you're an extrovert, it's like it hurts when you have to say it hurts to say no. And I think what I love so much about your point is not necessarily it's not in my budget, it's just that's not what I'm spending my money on, and realizing that that's okay. But it does take a level of conversation to be able to do that. Like I lost my job and my best friend Megan would call me and be like, the girls are going out. I want you to come. I've got $50. That's yours for the night. And bless her whole heart, she basically paid for me to be social for half of a year. And having friends that I was comfortable saying, I can't afford this. And then having people, because I think you don't realize how much support you have until you have those conversations. So a lot of people feel like they have to say no, or when realistically, if I just would have opened up more and said, hey, I can't afford this, my friends might have been like, okay, well, let's stay in. Or let's just go for pivot. A coffee. Or we'll do our Monday night, or we'll do our like movie night on a Tuesday on cheap night. But I never had those conversations. I never said I can't afford it. I just lived in fear and only told the people I felt comfortable telling. And I think that there's, so much power in just saying, hey, it's not for me, I can't right now.
Totally. And I think we all need to remember too, it feels really scary to say it. It can also feel scary to receive that, because I know on my end, if someone were to say that to me, my immediate feeling, because I'm a fixer, okay, well, what can I do to make this feel better for you?
Or like, I'm so sorry I made you feel that way.
Exactly.
If your friends don't want to make you feel bad, of course, they wouldn't hang out with you otherwise. And if they are, then they're trash, whatever. We're getting rid of them.
We're talking about the good friends.
We're getting rid of them. Yeah, they'd obviously, I would never want my friends to feel that way. And I would be the same. I'd be like, okay, let's all chip in. We'll split her bill and we'll make it work.
Or we're staying in, or all the things that you were saying are so important too. It's a really funny one, because I think we have to train ourselves to be on the receiving end, to say, not a problem, I'm here for you. Do you need anything from me? How can I help? We can do that inside, rather than making someone feel smaller than they already are, or excluded because they've already come to you in a moment of real vulnerability. Help build your friends up. You don't have to, even if you don't have $50 to give your friend, find a way to make it so that everyone can afford to do the same thing.
YOB, potlucks,
Totally.
You
And
can
I think,
figure it out.
Yeah, and usually those are the most fun nights anyway. So you're saving money, and then you're hanging out with your people, and you've respected the boundaries of the people that you love. I think it's a really beautiful thing to do for somebody. Amanda, why do you think talking about money feels so shameful?
I think it's because the world revolves around it. And your class and what people think of you, that's where it comes from a lot of the time, as sad as that is. As a teacher though, like, I'm very open about my salary to my students, because I want them to know, you can do university, and you can do this and you can do that, and I literally bring up my paycheck on the screen. And they're like, whoa. I'm like, yeah.
I bet they're nicer to you when they say that. They're like, damn, miss.
Like, you put up with us.
You sure?
Yeah, so I think the shame is definitely because a lot of people put value in things that people have and not who they are as people. And so if you are in some way showing that you don't have a certain amount of money, it makes you feel lesser, and others can make you feel lesser. And I see it too as a teacher, because I have students who I know's families are, not upper middle class families, who show up to school in name brand stuff. And that they went and they either spent their paycheck or their family busted their butts to get them that stuff, because they were going to feel that judgment if they didn't. And so I see that every single day. And, I make sure it doesn't happen around me, but, it happens not even just with kids, it happens with adults.
I was that kid.
Me too.
I saved all my babysitting money for that Ralph Lauren raincoat, or that Nike pair of sneakers, or... Do you guys remember Northern Reflections?
It's still open. There's one in Dartmouth. Yes, there's one in
When everybody was wearing those sweatshirts, and I was like, oh my God, they're so expensive.
The Gap sweaters.
With the Adidas tracksuits, everybody had them in every color.
I remember my mom put it on layaway, so she would put stuff on layaway.
Great, yeah. Layaway was probably the main way that I learned about kind of budgeting and saving.
Pacing yourself.
Zellers and Kmart. Now that I think about it, actually.
My mom layawayed
Layaway was great.
Yeah, it was the only way. It was the only place.
Don't even know if that exists anymore.
I don't
That's
think
so
so.
fascinating. But it's true. It was
Yeah.
like you didn't really, because you didn't own the thing yet. You only got the thing when you fully paid for it, but the thing didn't go away.
Something in my brain just clicked. Like our mom used to, because if we wanted certain clothes, our mom would say, yes, I'll put this much down, and then you can come in with your allowance or your $2 bill or whatever, and put some down, and for as long as you want. I kind of forgot about that, actually.
I think that it's because we've changed the language. I think we call it payment plans now. So things like the Aura ring, you can have a payment plan. You can subscribe to vitamins and that kind of thing. So I think it's the same thing.
Sezzle, right?
Yeah. So it's the same thing, just different language. Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
Yeah, but it sounds a little bit better. A payment plan, like layaway, I feel like there was like a vibe with it. Like, oh, you have to use layaway. Or
Well, it's like you said, it's that social side of things. So my background is social work, and I used to work in child welfare, and society, as most of us know, if you don't have a lot of money, people treat you differently, period. Oh, those bus people, and the way that people talk about people who they assume don't have money based on either what they're wearing, what their job might be,
I got bullied in speed
their mode of
skating.
transportation, right? And there's shame in that, right? You don't want to be bullied at any age and treated badly at any age.
Let's face it, buying a home is probably the biggest purchase you'll ever make. It's terrifying. But knowledge is power, right? So why not talk to someone at credit unions to find out what you could afford and get educated on all those other expenses you might not have considered. With the help of a credit union professional, you'll be hanging that home sweet home sign before you know it. Credit unions, helping Atlantic Canadians navigate mortgages even when the waters seem rough.
I literally quit speed skating because there's a girl that used to bully me every time I went because she said that my snowsuit was a welfare snowsuit because it was like my older cousins. It was fire. I don't care what she has to say. It was like one mint green. It was fabulous. And I was, yes. And I was
People want those now.
I was living, whatever, but she did get to me. It was like a whole thing. But yeah, I quit. I remember my stepdad being like, oh, you love speed skating. Why did you quit? And I never told anyone. I never said anything about it. But like, I always think about those little kids and like, I obviously wasn't going to go on and be a professional speed skater, but like it still was something social and fun for me to do. And so like it.
But you could have. And like that's the thing.
Right.
Those moments and that type of like treatment when it's surrounding money can drastically alter the course and the path of someone's life because they do or don't have it. And like it is that serious. And it continues to be that serious as you become an adult because it's how you're treated, although it seems like it changes, it doesn't change.
Well, I think social media makes it kind of intense too. I think, we only see the highlights and the best of everyone's life, and we don't know how they got the things that they got. But it's,
Or if they even have the things that they're showing you, right?
Or the things that they're showing.
Right. Or they're even where they say they are, you don't know.
Really, but it's a good point. Like that's exactly where I wanted to take this conversation was to the social media of it all. I had this realization recently. I was talking to a friend of mine about body image and her kid was coming to her with questions that she didn't ever remember even asking herself when she was younger. And we were talking about how even when I was in my early days of university, Facebook was just becoming a thing. So we weren't doing all the things. If you're getting ready to go out with your friends, all you cared about was that you felt good about yourself and you were going to have fun with your friends. There was no one taking pictures. There was no one documenting your life. And then somewhere along the line, even by the time I was in school, by the time you got out, you were going out. You're posting all your pictures the next day and writing your fun captions and your whole life was documented. And it felt different. You were looking at pictures of after night versus thinking about the memories of your friends. So in not that long of a period of time, we've gone from doing things for us to for the entire planet. And okay, so Ton, we've talked a lot about your upbringing and you worked lots of jobs and you worked so hard to have, your back to school clothes and all these things. Now that you have some financial stability and you've educated yourself so much on financial literacy, what do you think it's okay to just splurge on?
Well, I really like handbags, and this all started when I started buying my own birthday presents. Like I would save up all year, and I said to my mom and dad, I was like, I can handle my own birthday present. Like I'd rather pick it out or whatever it is, but
I love that.
so obviously the gifts have gotten a little bit more spency as I get older and my financial situation changes, but I love the history of a good handbag, the design. I just love the idea of like that I can pass it down, and
we appreciate a value.
I just love a good handbag, and there probably is a section of people that might not think of that in the same way as I do, like my husband.
Mine also.
He's just like, I don't understand. But this is the other thing is that my husband, he's amazing. I love him, but he spends nothing.
So this is why I love him.
He spends nothing. So then, like being in a financial partnership and having a household together, I liking nice things and spency things, and brand names, I feel guilty. Like I'm always like, I feel like this like.
My mind immediately went to, so you get double. Right?
I feel guilty. I wish, but there's this part of me.
Let's go with that one.
Yeah, maybe I should just change my thinking with that. But
Because if he doesn't want it.
right, I just feel so like when I was just by myself, my own money. I was like, I can buy whatever I want. I saved up for it. I know I'm good, but then now it's like, oh, well, if he's never bought anything close to this much money on himself, and not for the household, but just on himself, then can I do it? And
I think it's like what it represents, right? It's not, it doesn't matter whatever it is for someone. Maybe it's a watch, maybe it's a handbag, or it's a specific kind of car. I think it represents something to you. And
yeah, it's very personal for
And
me.
how it makes you feel, regardless of the why, right?
and it doesn't need to matter.
Thanks, guys.
To,
Can you come over for dinner? Tell you on what a great idea it is.
And 5 more bags.
But the other thing I think like is invaluable to spend money on if you had extra money or saved up for is traveling. I love traveling. That's something we couldn't do as an immigrant family. I think we traveled to the campground an hour outside Yarmouth, and that was like our big trip. But and I used to grow up being quite envious of my friends who went to Florida every year with their parents.
Yeah, March break stories.
Yeah, and then I'm just like,
I went bowling.
yeah, I stayed home, babysat my kids. You know,
Boys and Girls
so I
Club.
think traveling with kids is such
Yeah,
an
I think
important thing.
travel for me too. I will work every day, all day long, if I know that I'm gonna have like a week to do something. And I think you learn about other cultures and other experiences. You try different food. I think
much
it's
value in that.
100%.
Yes.
It's invaluable.
What about for you, Alicia? Do you think it's okay to splurge on?
Well, I love a good handbag.
We'll talk later.
I think for me, I thought I would never be able to afford one. So then when I did and I got to go in and experience, I remember walking into the Gucci in Toronto, and I had the Gucci in Toronto, and I had my Converse sparkly fanny pack on, and I walked through the door, and the girl was like, "Do you know what bag you want?" And I was like, "Absolutely no idea. I have no idea what." And luckily, one of the sales associates recognized my innocence and was like, "I'll show you everything," because for me it was this experience that I had never gone in before because I was too afraid someone was going to speak to me and I was going to be like, I can't afford it. Okay, bye. Like just like you have to go through a beeper like on the way in and be like, you can't afford this. Yeah, so when I got to get my first bag, I think that was a very pivotal moment for me, like to realize that like I could afford it. But I think for me it's experiences and then things for other people. Like I listen to parents talk about experiences for their kids. And I think for me, the hard part, which sounds extremely privileged, but it's the truth, the hard part about having money and being stable is that not everybody in my life also has money and is stable. So when we want to do things and we want to experience things or I want to give myself something, I always have this urge to also make sure other people have it too. So, and I think that that's a beautiful thing that I have and I'm able to do, but it's the truth, and that's where the guilt comes along that I think I talked about earlier of just that judgment from the other side of having money is that when you spend it, people are like, oh, you've got a Gucci bag now, like
You could fix this, or
yes,
you could do that.
yeah, and you could do, but at the same time, I think for me, money, it's experiences, like whether it's an experience for me or like I got to take Amanda to Vegas with me this year, and like we went to PEI with my nephew, and like I'm able to support so many cool experiences now, and I think for me that's like the splurge of it all, because I always joke about it. If I buy someone dinner or we'll do something and they'll be like, you don't have to, and I'll be like, but if in 2 years I have nothing, I need to sleep on your couch, I'm gonna be like, remember that time? Do you remember that dinner that I bought you? It is sincerely a joke, and I hope that it never comes to that, but in my brain I would rather rack up all of these really cool experiences with the people that I love than like necessarily like things. But I still do have my Gucci bag, which I do love very much. So yeah.
Like speaking to that, like I think the first time we took my parents on a trip out of country together, and that was really cool because as parents now, like Jan and I try to make trips with the family, but also by ourselves if we can. But growing up, my parents never took any trips. They never left us. And to see them out and like enjoying and doing things, like I totally agree. I think that is like the best thing to come out of like all the hard work that we've all done.
It's also the trauma. It's also the
It
never
is.
got to do any of this, so I'm going to do it while I can type of thing, which isn't necessarily a
But I
bad
think
thing.
you're showing the positive part of it too. I think going back to what you said before about how like we look at people with money and we think like ew. But if people with money are generous and they're supporting all these amazing things, then it doesn't need to be something that's ew, you know?
Right. Well, and it breaks thinking like in terms of for your kids and your family, think about your kids now, right? So they will grow up thinking and that not being an odd thing. You're saying, you know, we never saw my parents leave, they never did anything, and now they will have a different perspective on
you're
that,
right.
right? We were able to, you know, we took my mom and dad and our grandparents and we traveled here and, you know, our parents took us here, and so they'll have a whole different experience.
You'll be racking
right?
in those trips later.
Right.
That's what's going to happen for you.
I'll be like, I'm expecting to be on that vacation, whatever's happening here.
But it breaks those, you know, those generational traumas, curses, whatever they might be. It's
right.
part of breaking that
never really
for
thought
them,
about
right?
that, but-
yeah. So they will have a different experience, and their realities will be completely different from yours, and you got to do that for them, right? So there's power in
We're
it.
pretty cool, guys.
Pretty cool. Well, this is just, again, the most perfect segue, because I was going to ask Amanda, what are you the most proud of your financial situation today?
Oh gosh. I think I'm gonna get emotional, and my sister's sitting next to me. She's gonna get emotional.
Do it.
I dare you.
Do it. I'll start listening
Well,
to
I'll
things
do
I'm
it.
proud of you for.
I might need a minute. Okay. I'm the kind of person that when I need to verbalize something, when it's emotional, I start to cry. I think that I've been able to create a life for my family. I think that's pretty much it.
It's amazing. I love that.
We got it.
I'm proud of you for asking for help when you need it. Like, I know that that's like not a thing that we grew up ever really having, or like, I think I was so afraid for so long to ever ask for help. Like, I'd rather put things back on the grocery list than have to call somebody to say, hey. I'm proud of you for...
I think it's different too because I know when I ask you, I'm not going to feel the judgment.
Yeah, I think it's cool that we've created that relationship for each other, even though what we've gone through. But yeah, I'm proud of you for asking for help, because at the end of the day, like, I wish I could have asked for help, like, before I got myself into the position that I was in. And obviously that's not the position I'm in anymore, and I'm very grateful for that, but I also realize that it's not easy to ask for help. Again, that's why we're here having this conversation. So I just think you should know that that's like a pretty powerful thing, is to be able to ask somebody for support when, you know, at the end of the day, it's going to create the life for your family that you know you want to have and can create. So. That's enough of that.
But I think that's the most, like, as soon as you started talking, it made me emotional, because I think, you know, I love this platform in particular because talking about money has been so shameful and embarrassing and gross, no matter whether you have it or you don't. We've talked about that a lot. And I think the fact that I've had conversations with every single one of you about where we come from and how we got there. Maybe the world thinks we're a certain way, but we're all coming from the same stories of hard work and feeling embarrassed or feeling that judgment. And it's such an incredible thing to say. We might sit here and shed some tears, but we're really proud of where we are, and we might have made some mistakes. I wish I had raised my hand and asked the questions I didn't know when I was younger and didn't make choices that I was super proud of in hindsight. But now I
Save
feel
the
like
retirement earlier.
totally.
Like when I was 12.
Exactly, and now
never
I'm
too
like,
early.
please listen to me talk about money, because I just want other people to feel like they can do that too. So I'm really thankful that we've been having this conversation today, because I think a lot of people will hear themselves in all of our stories or little bits and pieces of all of those, which is so amazing. But I think it's really interesting because we're talking about this as a group of women. We love our handbags and we like to go and splurge on these things. And sometimes maybe you feel guilty, or you saved it for a long time, or you're like, okay, I have this, I'm gonna pay it off in this amount of time back to myself. Do you think a guy is going out and spending money on a big ticket item and thinking the same way we do? Or do you think it's just a different attitude towards money, period? And I don't actually have no idea what the answer to that is.
I think it depends. Yeah. Like, Scott has the same t-shirt that I bought him in grade 12 high school that he's kept so well. I have a t-shirt that I bought 3 weeks ago that I'll probably never wear. Right. And I think that like there's both sides to it for sure. Like he is definitely the person that's strategically smart when it comes to spending. He's also the person that probably gets the most value out of things, but I'm the person on his shoulder being like, you should buy those shoes because they're going to literally last you 36 years because that's how the type of person he is. Right. But then he's also very, illiterate when it comes to money and disappeared one day out to the car because a debt collector called and didn't have a conversation with me, and then all of a sudden he was back in the house and we had no money because his credit card payment was so large they drained our bank account and we didn't have money for rent. And I'm like, open your mouth, speak to me, because I could have, like, you didn't have to pay that. You didn't have to pay that. So there's like, we're very up and down when it comes to those things, because I'm the first person to be like, I'm going to buy this and we're going to do that. And he's like, no, we shouldn't. But then he's also like, yeah, sure, take my bank account to pay the credit card.
Because it's like coming out of a place of fear. Rent. It was like, please don't get me in trouble versus I'm doing something that I'm spending on myself. Like he was trying to like look after you almost in a way.
It's really cool to watch him grow and to have watched him grow over the last few years now that we have a financial stability that he understands and knows and like can feel proud of, because he'll like the other day a package came to the house. He's never ordered himself anything, and I was like, what is that? He was like, it's a new shirt. And I'm like, oh, check you out, like buying yourself. But I think
we're on scrolling every night.
What do I need? Meanwhile, my $300 clothing order is on the way from clothing I'm probably never
at my door every day. I'm like, what are you getting today?
But I mean, it's cool to get to watch him. And then I've definitely inherited, now that we do have money, I've inherited a different way of thinking about rather than things and more so experiences. And like that comes from him, but he doesn't spend the same way I do, but I know that has a lot to do with who he is and how he's been raised, and like very different. But I don't know if it's a generically
not like a
male
or female thing. I think it's a personal.
The only thing that I find in my experience, like with Jeremy, my partner, he doesn't have guilt around purchases.
I was going to say the same thing.
No
my husband
guilt.
doesn't either.
Right.
None.
And so I think about it in terms of, I just had this conversation with someone the other day, and I said, why is there no such thing as dad guilt? Right? Everyone talks about mom guilt. Right? And I asked my partner, he's like, I don't feel guilty when I go anywhere. He's like, why would I? And it's actually helped me as a mom, because it's just a very matter of fact perspective. It's like, yeah, you're right. I work hard, I take care of it. Why would I feel guilt? Yeah. Right? So it's nice to see that, the other side of that. But for him, for example, like the biggest purchase he probably has made is like his PS5, right? Which is like $1,000 when it first came out. And I'm like, yeah, you will use it. It will get used even by the family, like, of course. And he's like, well, yeah, I am going to buy it. Like, it was not, I'm like, you can do it. I'm like, it's okay. He's like, yeah, I was going to buy it, right? And then I have a tab open with like stuff in my Lululemon cart for like a week. And I'm like, and literally working out as part of my job, right? So it's like, this is
and you get a discount.
And I don't wear anything else. Like, I only really wear workout clothes. So, but I'll be like, no, I can't. Like, that bodysuit's I just bought a $140 bodysuit from Lululemon. It's so great. But I had it in my cart for a week. And he's like, buy it. You will wear it. It will last you forever. That will last forever. Go ahead. And he's like convincing me. And I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't I buy that? It's not going to hurt us. We can afford it. And I want it, and I will get very good use out of it. But I almost always need convincing if it's not for my kids or him.
You can shoot me a DM. I'll convince you.
Just shoot me a DM.
We'll make a group chat.
This has been the most wonderful conversation. Before we end, I just want to end on, I want all of you to go around and just say the first word that comes to your mind when you hear the word debt.
Dread.
Daunting.
Normal.
Scary.
Terrified. Like heavy.
So I'm so proud of us for talking about this, because none of those words are good. It's super normal. We've just shared some really personal things, and I'm really grateful to all of you for doing that, because it's the most terrifying conversation to have, and I think that it's a beautiful thing to be talking about, and I'm thankful for all of you for doing that together today. So thanks for being so honest.
At the end of it all, it feels freeing.
I feel lighter. I do too.
Well, there you have it. Debt Roundtable Part 2. Thanks again to our panel for being so open and honest about a subject that frankly, we don't talk enough about. I'm trying to actually correct that in our house. My daughters are 13 and 11, and I have discovered the best way to educate them about saving is by suggesting they spend their own money on something. Funny how quickly an item goes from have to have it to I'm going to sleep on it. You know what? Come to think of it, I'm going to sleep on it is a pretty great approach to spending money overall. Wait, are they the ones teaching me? Thanks for listening to Your 2 Cents, the podcast. We're really proud to bring you these chats about money with our partners at credit unions. They're here to help Atlantic Canadians with any money issue you're having, big or small. So until next time, thanks for listening.